How can a voice from one tiny island manage to shake the entire world of literature? Well, today we're going to dive into the life of the man who did exactly that, the incredible poet and playwright Derek Walcott. His global recognition really hit its peak in 1992. In that year, the whole literary world turned its attention away from the usual cultural centers. The Londons, the Parises, the New Yorks, and instead it focused on a small island in the Caribbean.
And this is why. This was the official citation from the Nobel Committee when they gave him the Nobel Prize in Literature. And wow, those words, they just perfectly capture everything his life's work was about. You see, his historical vision wasn't just about dusty old history books. It was about facing the painful legacies of colonialism and slavery head-on. And that multicultural commitment, that was a powerful, beautiful celebration of the brand new identity that was forged in the Caribbean from that very history. Which, of course, brings us to the big question of this whole explainer. It's such an incredible story of pure talent and identity. And to really understand how we got to that global stage, we've got to rewind. Let's go back to the very beginning, to the place that made him who he was. His story begins on and is completely inseparable from the island of Saint Lucia. Now, you have to understand, this place isn't just a backdrop in his story. No, it's a main character in pretty much everything he would ever write. Just try to imagine what it means to grow up here, especially back in 1930 when Walcott was born. You're on an isolated volcanic island, a former British colony. That feeling of being cut off, the stunning beauty of the landscape, and that complicated, heavy weight of colonial history, all of it becomes the raw material for his art. And his family life? Wow. It was this incredible mix of influences that shaped him right from birth. On one hand, he had the deep historical roots of his grandmothers, who were descendants of slaves. On the other, he had the artistic spirit of his father, who was a painter, and the academic rigor of his mother, who was a headmistress. So you've got art, history, education. It was all there, right from the very start. So with a foundation that powerful, you can imagine his rise as an artist was, well, pretty swift. He didn't just sit on these influences, he started transforming them into his own unique voice. And he started really, really early. I mean, just look at this timeline. At just 18 years old, he's already making his literary debut. From there, he studies in Jamaica, then moves to Trinidad, completely immersing himself in the wider Caribbean culture. The key thing here is that by 1962, when his collection, In a Green Night, becomes this huge international success, he'd already spent more than a decade honing his craft and deepening his connection to his home. But here's the thing about Walcott. He wasn't just focused on his own poetry. He had a much bigger vision. He knew that for Caribbean stories to be truly heard, they needed their own stage, literally. And in 1959, he did something about it. This year marks a huge turning point, not just for him, but for the entire future of Caribbean drama. He founded the Trinidad Theatre Workshop. Now, this wasn't just some local venue. It was an institution. It was a place designed from the ground up to create and produce an authentic indigenous drama, a theater that spoke with a Caribbean voice about Caribbean lives. This quote really gets to the heart of his entire philosophy. He wanted to create art that was unapologetically, deeply rooted in this unique cultural fusion. It was all about inventing a new language for the stage, one that reflected the real rhythms, the myths, and the tensions of a world built from African, Asian, and European pieces. So as his fame grew, Walcott's life began to span two very different worlds. And yet, through it all, he always maintained one singular, powerful voice. For many years, he split his time just like this. He kept his home, his creative core, in Trinidad, staying deeply connected to Caribbean life. But at the same time, he was teaching literature at Boston University, bringing his perspective to a global academic audience. The amazing thing is, he didn't leave one world for the other. He actually built a bridge between them. Derek Walcott passed away in 2017, and he left behind a truly monumental legacy. It's pretty incredible when you think about it. By giving such an authentic voice to one small place, he created work that would echo across the entire globe. Which leaves us with this final thought. Walcott's life and his work answer this question perfectly. He showed the world that a voice, when it's deeply and authentically rooted in its own small part of the world, has the power to speak to all of it.